Hey guys, how you doing? Ugo here, aka Mr. Tickzon. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you've had a lovely day and a lovely beginning to the week. This is the 99 days of value. Not has been. We're not even done yet. We're just 10% of the way. This is day 9, and so hopefully this has been adding value to you. So 99 days of value, day 9. What piece of value we're trying to add to you today? So I'll start this one off differently. I'm going to ask you a question, and obviously, the interesting thing about asking questions is that you're already going to be creating the answers in your head. So I want you to list for me 5 positive emotions. Go on, list it. I also want you to list for me 5 negative emotions. Whatever emotions you think is positive and negative, I want you to list them out in your head. Okay. Now, the piece of advice, the piece of value I want to add to you today is that essentially that was a trick question, because there actually is no negative emotions in all being it. There being positive emotions. Now there's positive feelings associated to emotions, as well as there's which whether they could be negative or positive. There could be, and so there's, you ever cry but you're happy, you ever you ever laugh but you're sad. The emotion that you're expressing doesn't necessarily equate to the feeling. But the reason why I say that there's no negative emotion, now I'm sure for you the positive emotion was like happy, excited, joy. Negative emotion, sad, anger, jealousy. No. Your emotions are all legitimate in a way. As per you have had some stimuli, and this is the end result of this stimuli that gave you that reaction. And so the reason why I say some people will be like, I want to be happy, but being happy all the time is not necessarily the greatest thing, because if you're always happy, I'm talking about more the extremes of emotions as opposed to duration. But if you're always happy, to some extent, you're probably in your comfort zone. You're probably not growing. It's very hard to be completely happy in terms of being devoid of stress, and distress ally stress is a form of discomfort. So if you're comfortable all the time, then you're probably not growing. So being happy all the time and trying to weave your life into being happy is not really a positive thing for you, even though you're having a positive emotion. Anger as a typical one. This person is always angry. This person's always angry. Anger is an interesting one because there's good reasons for anger. A lot of times when you look at these emotions, you shouldn't really be looking at them as per you are having these emotions, this is bad or good. It's more what has triggered or instigated this emotion, X, Y, Z. And so, for example, anger is a good one because, anger sometimes comes from unrequited love. It comes from pent-up frustration. You see a young kid, for example, and you say, this kid is always angry, this kid is always angry. Most times there are people who weren't necessarily being heard, and it's just come up as frustrations. Or this happens to a lot of young men. They go from being young boys, expressing themselves, oh, I'm sad, and kind of feel like they shouldn't be able to express their emotions because of the reactions that they get when they do, being called names or whatnot. And then so the only way that their emotions can come out is in anger, it's out of frustration. Most people, they just want to be heard in some way, shape or form. In happiness in its extreme, completely happy people, not necessarily, there's happy people, and then there's people who are are constantly trying to portray that they're happy. Sometimes you find that the people who help people are typically hypocrites in that they don't necessarily have somebody helping them. So a lot of people who portray themselves as I'm put together and they're helping everyone else don't actually necessarily have somebody helping them. And so sometimes those are people that are the most depressed, those people the most sad. You see it with a lot of comedians, they bring a lot of joy and a lot of happiness, they're always smiling, but a lot of them will come out and say they're depressed and whatnot. So sometimes being sad is good. Letting yourself feel the emotions, grow from the emotion. Sometimes when people want to be happy, they are running away from sadness or anger because that is a frustrating feeling. They just want to be happy. And so they can quickly overlook things that are actually happening that you should be angry about. Anger is good, and anger says that this is not right. Anger is what leads revolutions. Anger is what, makes you to be able to actually find the courage to say that this is wrong. Jealousy, for example. jealousy is good in the fact that, and again, all of these things in and of itself, is jealousy is not bad. You know, this person has that. You know, like Africans always like, do they have two brains? The way you can actually look at it is like, okay, this person got gold medal. I wasn't happy. And maybe I'm not happy about that. I'm a little bit jealous. Your response could be to hate on this person, X, Y, Z, or your response could be, you know what, I'm gonna beat that guy next time. I'm gonna beat that girl next time. I'm gonna excel past them. You can use it as a positive force. Ultimately, how you react to your emotions is the most important thing. There's absolutely no negative emotion, and it doesn't really matter what the emotion really is, you know. And so, trying to harness and understand yourself in that way will also stop you from condemning yourself from feeling these XYZ emotions in a certain sense, and understand that, you know, it's almost like a root cause analysis. If somebody's always sad, you know, I had a situation where, obviously, if you don't know, we host a regular open mic night for singing, creatives, spoken word poets, comedians, all kinds of creative sparks. And we had a heckler, which is an interesting situation to have in a spoken word situation. Obviously, I do poetry, I do rap, I do songs, I do a lot of different things, and we've had all of it. And then somebody came over there and he was just heckling, and they were frustrated, and then they were, you know, everyone was getting angry and whatnot. The audience wasn't happy. It was like there was gonna be a brawl, and like everyone was displaying their emotions, and he's just like, listen mate, I didn't come to the pub to listen to poetry, XYZ. And it was an interesting situation to, like, you know, de-escalate, and we'll talk about conflict resolution in a different video. But when I called the guy up, my guy David, that's my guy now, so he's me and my friends now. But I called him up, and it's like, you know, he was like, listen man, I don't understand, I'm not being funny. He was walking across, he was so impatient, he was so annoyed, he was so angry, and then, you know, the audience wasn't happening, and even people were sending shots, everything. And then I told him, yeah, okay, he said he wants to say something. I was like, okay, cool, come in. I introduced him like I introduced everybody, with so much energy and everything, had him sit down, he spoke, and then he was like, you know, and then after he started speaking, and then he started saying his reasons for what he wanted to say, and then I had a conversation with him on there. I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but then it was just like, okay, listen, like, it's all right, like, you know, this is the reason why we're doing here. You like the pub, you know, you're a bit frustrated, but then it comes to say that basically their heckling essentially wasn't necessarily their heckling thing. It's just more they had personal frustrations about what's going on, and by the end of it, they were enjoying the show. They were part of the show. Him and his girlfriend came up, and then they actually both spoke, and what now became part of it. So David Davina, but in the sense of the negative emotion is like, you know, and Davina, she came and she spoke, and she actually broke down while she was speaking, because about her family and what she was going through. And so sometimes we lash out. I'm not saying what they did was correct. I'm saying you have responsibility for how you carry on with your emotions. Be it feeling a type of way in your emotions has no excuse, and no, it's not a good excuse for any of your actions. Ultimately, it's a good enough reason for understanding for your actions, but you ultimately have the choice to do whatever is in your actions. For example, as well, I said in the previous video about choices and making choices. In extreme happiness, you could say yes to a lot of things. You would say, yes, I'll take you there, I'll take you there, take you there. Then when it comes down, it's like, I've said yes to a lot of things. Oh, I was so happy. Don't catch me happy, because I'll just say yes. You know, it's same thing in sad or in anger. If you're very angry, you know, anger, you know, there's no negative emotion that, you know, how you process those emotions is more important than what the emotion you're having is. Basically what I'm trying to say. There's no real negative emotion, whether that be envy, jealousy, love, happiness, joy, sadness. If you've watched Inside Out is a very good movie, and I love the way it intertwined, even though it was a focus more on happy and sad, but it was a very good way of an illustration about your emotions, of that happiness was joy, was doing everything she wanted to do to make sure that, you know, Riley was happy and joy, but didn't realize that most of your cool moments came from sadness. You know, a lot of us like our rags to riches. Oh, things weren't great, but they were great afterwards. You don't appreciate one emotion without the other. The other emotion qualifies the other. You can't have off without on. You can't have yin without yang. You can't be sad without being happy. If you've never been sad, you won't appreciate the fact that you're happy. You can't even comprehend what happiness is if you've never been sad. You know, if you can't, you know, triumph, you can't really understand its triumph unless you've kind of been in strife. Like there's a necessity within the different emotions that you will experience, and letting those emotions flow and understand that they're needed in sometimes. To be a good leader or good manager, sometimes you need to display anger because sometimes something's going wrong. Sometimes you need to display some aggression. Sometimes you need to display some kindness. You say some happiness, display some sadness. We're not a monolith as an individual, and if you try to curate your life in a monolith as per you just want to be this happy individual because this person looks happy, books are rarely what they seem until you read it. The person you see over there has always a smile on their face. Not say, and in the vice versa, just because this person has a resting bee face and this person seems sad all the time doesn't mean that they're miserable sod. It means that they're just not, they're just getting on with their day. They don't need to do this, they don't want to engage with you. But ultimately, your life is yours for you to live. Understand that there's no negative emotion, whether that be in terms of from yourself or interacting with somebody else. It's more like how you respond to those things and how much energy you give it. And ultimately, understand the deeper reason to it. This kid is angry. Most times it's not really angry. The person just wants to be listened to. Obviously, there's a cycle of that. They were angry one time or lashed out and then they weren't being listened to, and you're not going to give them the time of day, and then you continue a cycle of, okay, you're condemning them because they're angry and they get more angry because they're not being heard. Sometimes they just, need someone to just sit down and be like, oh, it's all right, what's going on? It's cool. Same thing where there's frustration, even with happiness. This person is happy, but sometimes, people are put in a position where you're in your family or you're in your friendship group, you're in your workplace, you're put in a position where you have to portray a certain type of emotion, whether you feel that you need to be a strong leader, so you're not showing any emotion, you're always kind of being like this, or you're the one where it's like, you always got to be the positive vibe for it, and so you do that in a way that also compromises your own personal feelings of feeling unhappy or feeling unwavering or feeling XYZ. There's no negative emotion. Allow yourself to feel your emotions and try to find out like a root cause analysis for yourself why you feel this emotion, because it's important for us to grow and fully understand the scope of who we are, because we're not just one person and you can't write who we are on one page. Even though we got CVs to try and make that the case, it rarely is the case. Most of you are more interesting than you realize, and letting yourself understand yourself more is such a beautiful thing. So spend time with yourself in different moments. Check yourself, look how you react to this thing naturally, and try to understand where you are and understand where you want to get to be. If you want to be a bit more happy or stuff like that, doesn't mean that sadness, anger, all these things won't be something that's part and parcel. It doesn't mean you will never be jealous. It doesn't mean you won't never have envy. But again, with all these things in extremes, anything in extremes, it's not great. So hopefully that's added some value or different perspective to you. And I hope you've had a good day. And 10% of the way, we've got more to go, and we'll be back again tomorrow. See ya.